Today on Revenue Unplugged, we have another incredible sales leader joining me for a chat. This guest has had no more than 7 successful exits, which is an incredible achievement. As you can imagine, I'm very excited to have them on the show. You probably know by now our guest is the one and only Steve Davis. We cover a lot of ground during this episode, so make sure you have pens and notepads ready for action. I really hope you enjoy the conversation. Steve, welcome to Revenue Unplugged. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We've got some interesting topics to dive into today, but before we do that, as a way of getting started, if you could just give our audience just some sort of insights to who you are, the role you're doing now, and what the business does.
Yeah, hey everybody. Steve Davis, CEO of Rev-n-u. We're working to solve the pre-sales problems of the world. In my past, I've been a CRO for a number of years and moved recently into the CEO position.
Love it. What made you want to move from go-to-market to leadership in that space to being a CEO?
Yeah, I figured I had every role in sales I could have, so I kind of ran out of steps to go. So next one for me was CEO. I love owning kind of all different aspects of the company. It's when you're a startup, you get your hands in everything anyway. And this was just the next progressive step for me. And I've really enjoyed all aspects of running the business.
Love it. Well, we wanted you on the show, Steve, because you've got experience from VC, PE world, you've got experience as a salesperson, sales leadership, CRO, you've seen multiple exits, so you know how to make a plan, execute. And now you're sitting in the CEO seat where you've got a slightly different view on life now as well. So the 2 topics that you wanted to talk about was doing more with less and building in new geographies, and we'll hear about how you've lived effectively all over the world, which we'll think will bring some useful insight. But on the first one, doing more with less, cutting costs and increasing output, why was that a topic that you wanted to talk about?
I just think it's the reality of all startup world right now. This is what we all live in. So I can talk to it because I'm experiencing it right now. I've also experienced it in the past, but we're at a point where it's very different than what it's been. And with AI tooling, it's made our jobs easier, harder in a way where you're trying to figure out, I get data about the next AI brilliant package solution that I must have to run the business every day. So that makes it harder to kind of see through what actually works, what doesn't work. But once you pick your tools and your solutions, it does make it easier to do more with less. And so I've been talking about this with everybody. This is top of mind with CEOs and CROs and every part of your business. And it's exciting. It's a new world. And it's the reality of this is what your board is telling you to do. The days of just revenue at all costs, that's gone. You've got to show profitability faster and sooner than you have in the past. And the way that to do that is by automation.
So let's pick into go-to-market side of this. How does a sales leader understand where to start? AI has been talked about all over the place. For you and your experience, where do you start to understand what tools that you need?
Yeah, I mean, every business is unique, right? So, we're a startup selling sales tech to CROs and pre-sales leaders. We need something different than when I was at my last company, which was an environmental services company. They need different tools or doing different things. For us, in the majority of sales tech world, you're trying to build pipeline, but you're also trying to build qualified pipeline. I always talk about the old days of just building out quantity. Those days are over, spray and pray, right? So you get this huge pipeline, it's at the top of your funnel, and as you get down lower, you realize you're not winning deals, your win percentage is terrible, your conversion's bad, because you're passing bad leads down the funnel until you get to a deal. And the whole thing with Proverity is the technical win and the conversion of your technical win rates, we feel is the most important part of the sales cycle. So the tools we're looking for, both internally and externally when we talk to prospects, is anything that helps me automate the ability to cut down my funnel that I am dead focused on my ICP to sell to. And there are a lot of tools that help you do that and automate it, where instead of the army of BDRs, you can get it down to very few BDRs. You can even have less sales reps as long as we're using automation to build the funnel properly get the right resources in to run POCs, win technical evaluations, which again is different than what I was doing in my last company, which didn't really have that motion.
Love it. So let's get really granular and basic on this, because I've never run a pipeline in a software vendor. What are you looking to automate? Because I hear all the time people talking about pipeline and the pipeline never being as good as the numbers suggest. The conversion rate of what's gone into the top doesn't match up. So what are you looking to automate? You spoke about there about having less BDRs and maybe less sales reps. So what is it exactly that you're automating?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the days of pounding the phone calls and you're hitting, I did my 100 calls or I sent out my 1,000 emails, it's over. It doesn't work. Everyone's saturated, the digital world. I get, I'm sure you do too, James, like 100 emails. I don't even read them. You can't read them. They come in too fast. You might read one if it's specifically to me and understands my problem. So everything has to be personalized, and that's really hard to do on a large scale. Our market is cyber, fintech, health tech. It's a massive amount of companies. How do you personalize a message for each prospect? And that's the part you automate. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, great for creating lists. Clay, great for creating lists and molding it down to your ICP and getting the message out. There are AI BDRs that are actually doing the outreach. We've dabbled. I haven't been 100% impressed with it. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But I think the tools we use the most, if you look at ChatGPT and Gemini, and you have a set of prompts set up in your library, that makes it easier to do prospect research. So that helps you automate the research process so everything is personalized. You couldn't do that before. Now there's no excuse. I never want outreach from a sales rep, from a BDR, from an SE, anyone who's talking to the prospect. If you can't run 5 to 10 minutes of prompts before you do outreach, then you're not doing your job right in today's world. So those are the tools. You have a set of prompts. We look at everything from the prospect we're talking to. What is their CEO saying? What do their financials look like? What are the strategies they're trying to accomplish in their market? Speak their language. If you do this and take 5 minutes and send out personalized messages via LinkedIn or email or whatever outreach that you do, you're going to get a much higher conversion rate. And that's what we have found.
And so are you saying that the reps are still creating the emails, but they're using AI to generate the information that needs to go into the emails? Or are you saying...
Yeah. So AI can create the emails too. I mean, you guys know AI can create almost anything these days. The issue with AI created emails, I still think you can tell. And so if you prompt it correctly, then the email does, or the AI does, let's say, 70% of your work, which is, think about that time savings. It's an enormous amount of time savings. So if that's writing 70% of your email, but you've personalized it and then you rewrite that last 30%, the ability to personalize on a large scale becomes, you're able to do that.
Interesting. And because you've got access to this information quickly and you're able to generate these emails that should get attention, why do you feel you need less people? Because surely more people would do more.
Yeah, the difference is less people are covering more. So you used to have the army to say, okay, or even AEs, cover these 50 accounts, 50 named accounts. And it does depend on your motion. If you're an enterprise, sell, right? And that's, Proverity does enterprise mostly. To go and personalize your message, it used to be called account-based marketing. It might still be called that, like whatever you're calling it, it's personalization. And you're specifically selling to that account. In the old days, you couldn't really manage more than 50 accounts, 30 accounts, some places. Now, for the outreach side, you're able to cover a lot more. And without, again, the spray technique, 10,000 companies, you send out the blanket email to 5,000, you might get 1 or 2 responses. Again, conversion rates are a little higher than that, but not much. Where now with less people using all of these tools, using the prompts, using the personalization, I don't need to do market research and take an hour per account. I can do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't need 20 people doing an hour each. I can do 1 or 2 people taking 5 minutes on each account and getting our message out correctly.
And in your opinion, how important, because we touched on it, but how important is it that the sales reps do that last 30% of the emails or even write the email? And the reason why I say that to you is that I thought my life was changed when I had Note Taker, and it completely took down all the information and even formulated follow-up emails for me. And it was like, this is brilliant. I'm getting so much time left in my day to do lots more things. Here's my challenge. I couldn't remember what happened on the phone call because
Yeah, right.
I
Right.
took information by writing it down. And so, if I was in a BDR or a sales rep position, if the call came in or somebody booked in the call, I wouldn't know what their problem was, or I would be like, second guessing and just wouldn't be as strong as if I'd created it all and done the research, myself and knew where it was. So how do we make sure the reps are credible if they haven't done it?
So to answer your first question, how important the 30% is, it's mandatory. You have to know something about the account you're talking to, the person you're talking to. Again, 70%, 80% time savings is a lot. So from the world we were coming from, to just put in 20, 30% into the final pathway to reach out to a prospect is enormous time savings. It's interesting with the note takers and Zoom and the transcripts and Gong and the transcripts, I find those incredibly helpful. But instead of just taking the transcript and saying, hey, here's a recording to the call we just had, that's lazy. That's absolutely lazy. The sales rep needs to take the transcript. It's written for you. I mean, it's an amazing tool. Again, you talk about automation and time savings. The days of the handwritten note, which unfortunately I still do, my writing, but not for a meeting. I can now focus on the meeting. I've got either granola or Zoom or Gong. But then we take 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes. Take the note and write the email. And then you could have. There's so much automation. I could have the email written automatically. Again, the transcript is done for you. Go through it. Put together your proper next steps. Take the 5-10 minutes. I always say, guys, take a deep breath. Slow down. You've just saved so much time. Now do the response back right. Set up your next steps. If you had a mutual plan, that can be updated automatically too. But that's how you internalize the message that you have with your prospect. So you do start to understand what's going on in the account because it's not all a machine, right? There's got to be inherent knowledge on your team.
You mentioned that you kind of tried replacing the BDR with technology.
Yeah.
Firstly, what made you try it?
I am a technologist at heart. So I was a sales engineer for 7-8 years. I love technology. I love stuff like the stuff that comes up new. When the internet came out a million years ago, I was at a .com company, right? And I always try to jump to what I think is new and hot, and that's been really good for my career. And it's also allowed me to be on the forefront of technology. Look, I've got a lot of gray in the beard. I don't want to become a dinosaur. You become a dinosaur when you stop using and trying out technologies, right? I always talk about CEOs and CROs who haven't adopted AI into their practice, their everyday practice, will be out of a job soon, right? Yeah. So what makes me want to try it is, one, you've got to adapt, and two, not everything you try is going to be great, but that doesn't mean I won't try it. And with the BDR, AI BDR, it's coming, but I also feel, and this is an interesting philosophy where a lot of the BDRs who come up in your organization get trained, have inherent knowledge of your not only organization but solution, and it's a great path to get promoted. 100 years ago, I was a BDR. Now I'm CEO. I've had every role in between, and that happened because I got trained as a BDR to go to the next job, to go to the next job, to go to the next job. So I don't think you want to replace every BDR you have. I think you can supplement their work with AI tooling. Someday, who knows, 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line, with the rate of change we're seeing now, maybe there is an AI farm of BDRs completely. I don't think I'm going there. I think there's a human component of it, human in the loop, that is very important to the organization on its whole culturally and with your ability to train people inherently who know your product and give them a path forward, because that's going to help your organization as well.
Coming away from the sales motion there and looking at other areas, you mentioned that cut all tech that doesn't give you an ROI. How easy is it to tell on some bits of tech what the ROI is? And because I hear it all the time when people say, well, you just can't measure it, it just does.
Yeah. So again, maybe controversial. Like I've always been a big fan of Gong. Great product. They're expensive. And so I cut Gong. And it's not that they don't bring an ROI. I think it's a valuable tool. But for a startup, I have to look at what are the benefits and the cost. And right now, using other tools that are literally free, I get 80%, 90% of the same benefit, right? So that's one of those tools that the ROI doesn't exceed the value for a startup. If you're a large company and you want to use that tool, it makes total sense. I've used it. I like it. But that's, so I measure it really data driven. So I look at, how much is the cost? What's the conversion rates? What's the top of the funnel look like? What's the mid? What's the technical win percent? I'm very focused on that. I actually think it's more important than top of funnel. Everybody's obsessed about, we got to build pipeline. Like half of the pipeline that comes down the funnel is junk. Everyone's like, well, you're not focused right. Well, look, I'd rather be, again, quantity, quality, like give me quality every time, because I can tell if I've got quality in my pipeline by technical win conversion. So to answer your question on ROI, I look at the cost, you look at all of the metrics that product is supposed to bring you, and you can measure it, and look at time. Like I look at Granola, I look at the Zoom transcript. Zoom transcript's great right now, and they just keep getting better. Part of the service we pay with, why would I pay extra for that? Right? I might not get every little piece of feature functionality that another product might have, but it's not worth it to me. So I'm looking at that all the time. I'm trying things out, and the tools that bring us the most ROI, that's who we stay with.
How would you advise a CRO or any leader really who doesn't have the technical nous of you, who could go in and look at something that is very similar, understand how it works, and know that you can get what you need out of it, which is cheaper than going with a Gong? Because I'm not that technical, and it would be hard for me to understand what are the other options that give me what I need for free. So how would you advise a sales leader to start looking at, particularly if they're not technical?
Yeah, first of all, I think people would probably laugh at you calling me technical. I'm technical for my position. No, what I like, it's a popular term right now, job right now, which is, go-to-market engineer. You hear that a lot. Any good director of RevOps now, even director of sales ops, they have to have not an AI background, but they have to have AI knowledge. I mean, it's funny to say they have an AI background. It's been around for a couple of years. So I always laugh at that. I'm an AI expert. I'm like, good, for the last 12 months, last 20 months, 24 months. So you absolutely have to either hire someone who's an expert and knows the technology, knows how to integrate it all. That's also part of the automation. Yeah, I was at a company that had HubSpot and Salesforce, and they had trouble talking to each other and then getting the data. And it was just a disaster, right? So someone who understands technology, great background in AI, how to prompt, how to write within GPT and Gemini, like what you're writing, and can check out all the tools and how they interact, that's someone you hire. And that's the most valuable person you're going to have in your company at some point. Maybe it's coming, maybe it's now. Those people will help run operations for your entire company.
Yeah, super, super value. Looking at post-sales, before we move on to the next topic, there's been a lot of people have been trying out AI and different tech around support, chatbots and things like that. Where's your view on how we can use technology in the post-sales process once they're up and running?
Yeah, again, you automate as much as you can, but support's trickier to me. Think about when you call the airlines and you get automated calls the whole time. It takes extra 20 minutes, and then you end up speaking to a person because you're not being helped correctly. Will that go away eventually? Yeah, it keeps getting better every week, every month. The automation gets better. Today, and maybe in the future, I am a believer in customer success folks. Use tools to automate the minutia, but strategically, human in the loop again, super important. Our customers want to talk to someone. If it's via Slack, we have Slack channels set up with everybody now. It's great. That helps automate all the emails, trying to manage all of it. I want a direct question to support, they'll get an answer back. If they need to talk to someone, they can escalate it, right? So post-sales, I think for me, every company I've been at, the less churn, and this is going to sound ridiculous, less churn the better, but companies that focus on their customer needs eventually win the market. And it's an interesting point. Like when we build our product roadmap, I want to talk to customers. When we support them and go over the top to support them and get them what they need, that gets out in the market. And the best reference in the world comes from your customers. It doesn't come from us, right? If your customers are talking for you and saying these guys are incredible to work with, they give great support, or you'll sign up more customers. Again, automate, yes, 100%. You automate every job there is in the company, but support to me is a little trickier, where you still want human in the loop, and even tech support, automate up to a point. Customer success, automate up to a point. But you still want that human element.
So to ask a question where there's no real answer to it, and just to get your opinion on it, with the technology and the AI that we have at our fingertips and the amazing technology that people are selling and the technology that's there to support people, why are we not hitting numbers? Why are we not achieving revenue targets? It's at quite a low point with where it has been, and churn rate in some sectors has never been higher.
Yeah.
So why, in your opinion, why are we not just smashing it out the park? We've got all the technology, we've got some super people, and the technology we're selling is unreal.
Yeah. It's a loaded question. Well, so certain industries are still doing well. I think what you're seeing in B2B SaaS, especially, the sheer number of tools that are available, you hit it on the head earlier. If I don't see ROI, it's never been easier for me to jump to another solution, right? It's been easier. So I think what you're seeing is the churn rates are enormous because of the rate of change in your solution and the solutions available. AI has made it absolutely incredible to create new solutions that didn't exist a couple weeks ago, right? So, if I'm selling a solution, I have to protect my moat. Well, the moat's different. Verity, we're pretty sticky. It's a hard process that we're automating. The harder and more complex the process and the solution that you're automating is, the harder it is for your customers to leave. Right? And if you're giving them value, they won't leave. Overall, as an industry, I think revenue's down because there is a lack, sometimes like a lack of focus. So I talk to companies, we've got competitors, and they jump around. The old days of, there was a book a million years ago called Crossing the Chasm. You had to win one part before you jumped over and started other things. It is funny, the same principles still exist. A lot of our competitors will take their solution and say, well, we can keep building. It's so easy to keep building, and you lose focus. And when I talk to a lot of companies out there, and I'm like, how's it going? I'm like, it's pretty tough right now. Churn rate's obvious. Churn rate's the obvious ROI, and it's never been easier to jump around. But building out revenue, when you have a lack of focus, you're going to have a lack of conversions. I think because of AI, there's the good and the bad. You've got companies out there who lose, like, this was my ICP, this was my target market, we've got it honed in, this is what we do, and this is what we solve. And you do have an investment community that's like, oh, you're AI native, great, here's all your money, go build this. The companies that are doing well, if you, and it's not the sexy thing, but if you automate old school manufacturing, old school processes, not the fun, cool, here's the AI tool that can, paint your house for you. But old school, those companies are doing well. Automating tax code, they're doing well. Look, there's a couple companies out there, and you watch them, they're growing. And so, yeah, if you're this all the bells and whistles, those tools, this happens in every bubble. Everyone's like, oh, are you in an AI bubble? We're in an AI bubble. Half these companies will not exist in 5 years. And I think you'll see that. But again, the value, the ROI, if you're sticky, well, you'll be fine.
Love it. So moving on to building in different geographies. Before we get going on that, if you could just fill the audience in on where you've lived and worked and operated in, that'll give them a good idea why you're an expert on this topic.
Yeah. So I've done both EMEA and APAC twice. Best thing I ever did in the world. I would tell everybody, I tell everyone who's ever worked for me, go travel, go see the world. Changes your life, changes your mindset of how, in America especially, we're very insular. We think about what we think about. If you travel the world, I guarantee you will come back thinking differently about people, about how the world works. But that's my little soliloquy on go travel. So I lived in London for a bit. Helped start up the European region for a company called Blue Martini. That was phenomenal. Worked on a bunch of countries there. Came back to Boston, and they said, that went well. Would you like to do the same thing in APAC? I was like, sure. I was like, out. And we opened up, myself and a general manager at the time. I was technical director, so I ran all the SEs and partners for the region. We opened up offices in Japan, in Singapore, in Australia, Hong Kong. Amazing experience. I ended up living in Australia, which I think the company wanted me to live in either Singapore or Hong Kong, more central. But if you ever get to Sydney, it's a no-brainer. So lived down in Australia for 2 years, came back to the States and did a bunch of years in the States, and then at a company called Yala, where I was at for about 8 years. We were acquired by an Australian-based telco, massive company called Telstra. APAC, we wanted to just make bigger. We wanted to expand, and they said, Steve, we knew you lived down there. Would you go back and this time be general manager, right? The job that I reported to 1 million years ago, I'm now. They asked for that position. I'm like, this sounds great. But this time I have a wife and kids, a little bit harder decision. And my wife was like, let's go. So we went for a couple more years there, and just an incredible experience. It's just incredible. Hard to explain how good it is for not just financially. Financially, it's fun being an expat with certain companies, but just, again, the growth that you get from traveling and meeting all sorts of people and working with all different people, I just can't recommend more.
The first bit I want to touch on there, and you pretty much mentioned it at the outset, you arrived back home in the US thinking differently. And that's a key part. For people that are thinking about opening up internationally, the first part I want to ask you is what did you learn culturally and how different everything and everywhere is?
It's eye-opening. It is eye-opening. I love the way we did Europe. It was me and one guy who was one of my mentors, guy John Grouch. He was a phenomenal guy. He and I just tagged along. We worked crazy hours. And this guy was a machine. I was young, and I'm like, I don't know how you keep doing this. We were 20-hour days with flights, with flying country to country. And what he showed me and taught me was you don't just open up EMEA, right? You do have to get your name in the market as a leader in the States typically. If you start in the States, you're in Europe, you can start in APAC and go the other way. But before you expand, you've got to be a market leader, right? You've got to get a name. Otherwise, it's really hard. It's also really important to get multinational companies. The easiest way to expand is I've sold the North American division of a giant company. Let's now get their European division. Let's get their Asian division. So that's part one. Because John and I were going around EMEA, country. And before we expanded, we closed 5 to 10 deals with huge names. So you go back to management, your CEO, your board, and you say, look, these guys are just doing this. They're just traveling around on their own. And look at what they're doing. There is a massive market for this in EMEA. And so John ended up staying. He became general manager of EMEA. I went back to the States. So I helped him hire out the solution consultants, sales engineers, technical side partners, and I'd help interview other jobs. But then I went back, he stayed, and just having local presence. So the big two things you've got to do is figure out as GM, where do I want to open offices? And you should base that on data. Where are my best prospects? Where are my targets? The other part is, if we're hiring English-speaking people, are we only going to open in English-speaking countries? And yes, most companies will speak English at this point. However, in Germany, if you hire German folks who speak English, you will do better. In Italy, in France, in Spain, it's the same idea. So I'm a big believer in, you can have American folks, if you started in North America, American English-speaking folks, working with locals who speak the language, you'll just do better. It's just the way it is. Even if you're in North America and you have Latin as a region, you want someone who speaks Spanish and English. That's just the way it goes. So first step is open up the market. It's hard. A couple people, not a huge risk. Doesn't work out, the people go back. You're just not risking a lot. The companies I've seen, like, we're opening up in EMEA. Like, okay, like, now you're getting an office, you're figuring out all the paperwork, the taxes, all of this, the minutia in the background. There's a lot to deal with, right? You've got to get your business certification in each country. There's just a lot of stuff. You want to make that decision only after you've got a base of customers and revenue. So that's EMEA. APAC's a completely different ballgame. Japan, hard. China, I ended up staying away from. It was so hard to break through, and we're not manufacturing, and I was like, this doesn't make sense for us to do. But if you do Japan, this is an hour podcast on how to open up in Japan as a American company. That's the hardest one. If you don't have a kanji-based software product, so now you've got to rewrite your product in kanji, you just won't do well. You will not do well in Japan. So you have to be prepared to have a localized language product to go to market and then hire Japanese people. If it's not a Japanese office, you will not do well.
You need the revenue of everything else, and Japan's not the first place that you go to. Just taking a couple of steps back, you've got business, you've managed to sell to multinational companies. Then your recommendation is look at the information, look at the data. Tell me a couple of key bits of data that business leaders should be looking at to know whether or not there's a marketplace to go after there.
Yeah, it's similar to what you would do in North America, right? When I look at businesses and who I'm joining, or I talk to venture capital guys or PE guys, I'm like, okay, let's go over the business plan. You start with the TAM, right? What's your total addressable market, right? And so when you look at that, you do have to cut through the BS. I always laugh at startups. We're going to win 10% of the market. Like, okay, great. And your market's 10 billion. It's always the story. I'm going to go get investors. They're going to love this. I'm like, yeah, okay. So if you do a proper TAM and you really create a proper model, which is, okay, let's start at 10 billion and now really pare it down. Who is your ICP? It's cyber. Okay, there's 10,000 cyber companies. How many of those are startups? 5,000. All right, now you're down to 5,000. You can't fool yourself. That's what I tell business leaders. So I advise companies, stop fooling yourself. Get to the real data. What's the real TAM? You cannot go for, I don't do anything that's without doing that first. There's not a market for this. Everyone talks about product market fit. To me, market, if I can build the greatest product in the world. If no one wants to buy it, I just wasted 5 years of my life, right? So market first, look at the TAM, don't kid yourself, get it really down to, okay, this is the market, there is a problem to solve. Now, the geography. Are my target, or my ICPs in North America? Are they EMEA? Are they APAC? Are they worldwide? You got a worldwide solution to sell, wonderful. That's nirvana. That's what you want. You want a global solution. Everyone needs this. But the TAM comes first, and real modeling, real nitty gritty. So I always talk about the data. I want to know the exact number of companies, how big they are revenue wise, employee wise, who is there in need? How are they doing it today? Is our product replacing the status quo? Or build your own. That's a great place to be. That means there's typically smaller amount of competitors, right? So That's what I tell business leaders. Without the TAM first, without understanding your market, the best product in the world doesn't matter yet.
So, how do you advise leaders that, let's say, for instance, they've sold into the easiest place? If you're an American business, the easiest place to sell would be the UK or Southern Europe. But if your product is being sold into companies that are Nordics or DAC, it's a bit different. They buy differently. So how do you advise, or how did you work out quickly that you can't sell how you sold in the US? That's not how these people buy.
Yeah, we failed. That's how you learn quickly, right? A lot. Yeah, I can give the best advice ever. I mean, we failed. We failed. We went into some countries and we're like, this is not working. What are we doing? And again, the Netherlands was really interesting to me. There's a funny line in Ted Lasso. I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso at all, the soccer show. And the Dutch soccer player says something that appears really rude, really just rude. And the other teammate goes, oh, no, he's not rude. He's Dutch. Selling to the Dutch was wildly different, where they're so abrupt during your meeting. I'm like, this is a disaster. This is a terrible meeting. And we end up closing the deal. To this day, I'm like, wow, I read that really wrong. The other side of it is you get, people are jovial and having dinners and no deal happens. So the way you work around that is, A, you figure it out internally of, we failed here a bunch of times, what are we doing wrong? That's easy enough. Then there are certain places you have to hire locally. And I go back to that because we don't understand Americans coming in. I don't understand their culture. I can read about it. I always find it's funny. I'm going to Japan, so I'm going to put in a few prompts in ChatGPT to give me my itinerary and learn about the culture. Again, go travel, see for yourself, see how that works, right? So understanding each place, you do as much research as you can. One of the other ways, if you don't want to hire every local office, is to get partners and leaders. And that was huge for us in Japan. So we failed in Japan at first, for sure. And then we ended up getting 2 local distributors, huge names, go big, right? And so if you get a Sony, a Matsushita, you get the big names, they're backing you. So the first thing you have to do is not be greedy and say, oh my God, I'm giving 50% of my deal away. Why would I do this? Because 50% of zero is zero. And we were failing. And so we had a local group of people who represented our company, 3 or 4 people, that was it. But then we had an army of people from our Japanese partners who knew the people, who understood how procurement works. And you can do the same in EMEA as well. I think that model worked really well for us. Get you up to speed fast. You do give up some revenue, and at some point you get big enough and you're lucky enough to get that big, sure, have your own office and have your own people. But that was a really good way of getting up and live and learning how to sell locally faster than we could do by hiring our own team and continuing to fail before we learned. So,
from everything that I've seen, and even yourself, where you've been through so many exits, it becomes paramount now that you can't do it on direct selling alone. You won't scale quickly through direct selling alone, and you wouldn't do that in the US to get to a size. So why would you do it internationally where you've never done it before? There's a couple of bits I want to talk to you around hiring. If you are doing the right path, so you are knocking it out of the park in the US, you are renowned there, and you're like, right, the next thing is to move across into whichever geographical location makes sense to you. From your experience of doing this many times before, when would you hire your first AE on the ground in that country? What is the sign that you should be doing this?
Yeah, if you are consistent, I had an old mentor say 4 quarters. If you can consistently predict and beat your numbers for a year, then you can start to look at expansion. If you've got 1 quarter, it's great, then you're down, then you're this. 4 quarters, it's a year, right? That's enough time where you're like, wow, we've got the message down, we've got this down, and we're beating numbers, right? Today's day, people are like, well, we want to be profitable. Okay, maybe it's more time, right? In order, let's do 2 years. I mean, there's no exact time frame, but if you don't have a minimum of 4 quarters that you're doing well and you're profitable and you got the message and the machine's going and you can replicate some of that, you're probably premature. Right. So I always laugh like, oh, you had 2 great quarters, you're going to expand. Okay. And you'll be going through layoffs within 18 months. You see companies do that all the time. Oh, we built this huge thing and then lay off the company. They're not ready. They're not ready. And again, when you go in, the model of very take some experts out of your country, and that's what I was lucky enough to do a couple of times. They took me and a couple others, send them over, see how it goes. If you do well, yeah, now let's open up. There's a market. So the people who hire immediately, it's a risk. It's not to say it can't work out. It can work out. It's just risky. I always like, if your business is humming and you've got enough data points that you're like, okay, we're growing significantly. This is great. There's a TAM in the world. Go after it.
And I want to touch on that risk by hiring too early. And it kind of mixes into a really boring part of the conversation about understanding legislation and contracts and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the first part of it is how important, from your experience of going to these locations, is actually understanding how to hire and what's going to make the A players join those businesses, because it's not the same reason as to why someone in the US joins a business. And if you hire too early, you've got a culture that isn't right necessarily for the people that you're hiring out in those satellite places, and it can seem quite lonely, like even to like the part where the US have the lowest amount of holiday days.
For sure.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
And just getting their head around what some of the holiday entitlements are just scared some people, like, well, hold on a minute, whoa, you're allowed that much time off? Are you actually going to do any selling for me? Or so how important is it to almost have a multicultural business while trying to hire the people that aren't necessarily there yet?
Yeah, you bring up a bunch of really good points. First of all, I can't hire anyone who's local to Europe or APAC with a 3-week vacation package. Not happening. So get that out of your head. Again, if you're not prepared to pay or give benefits in the way that they're used to, you will hire nobody. It's a disaster. And you're like, why can't I hire? Well, this isn't their culture. And they can get a job that actually gives them 4 to 6 weeks vacation. Why are they taking this one? Second one is network. The network hiring is so important. Now I'm at a stage in my career where I can call 10 people in each country and say, hey, are you interested in this? We've got the next good one, right? When we first started this, we didn't have that as much, where we talked to a few people we need. That's where partners are huge. So if you have American partners, Accenture back in the day, Microsoft or Google, I call into them and say, hey, we're looking to hire. Can you get me into your network of people? Because going in blind is really hard. It's just hard. And in this day and age, you don't have to. With LinkedIn and everything else, you can see someone's past. See if they worked for a North American startup before, they understand what you're doing. I do think having a minimum of 2 people per region, per office, the one person by themselves trying to do everything, it doesn't work out very well either. Just like you wouldn't do that in the States. So minimum of 2, preferably 3. And again, if you're ready for that investment, 3 people go after a region, we'll hire from there. That can work as long as you're leveraging partners. Like, partners are really important, and for hiring as well.
And based off of through experience, how early should leaders be looking at actually how you hire someone and the contractual agreements, legislations that are in place? And the reason why I say that is I see it time and time again where people go out to hire these people, they find the person they want, and they're like, right, now we haven't got an entity, but we can use different types of avenues to get it done. Then they suddenly realise, oh, hold on a minute, I've got to do pension there.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're realising the costs that mount up. It happens the same when people go. I advise Israeli companies all the time about going into the US, and you say 401, they're like, I'm like, you can't say you cannot say that, right, let's just stop this. You need to research that now and add on that to all your packages. When should you know exactly what something's going to cost you? Because I think people are waiting till I'll give it time when I've got somebody I want to hire. And that's normally a bit too late.
Yeah. I'll give you 2 funny, but it's funny to me anyway. I am always weary from my experience, definitely, like, I'm gun shy of hiring in France. Here's why. We had a non-performer, just guy was not good. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was hanging out on the Riviera, whatever he was doing. And we couldn't fire him. We couldn't get rid of him. It took us 2 years of paying this person to do nothing. And I always look back at that and said, wow, I don't know. The risk is, for a startup, the risk is too high to hire in France if you don't know the person. If I know the person, great. Easy. Open up France for me. Wonderful. But that's risky. So when you talk about like the legislation and contracting, you better have not only just a good lawyer legal team, general counsel, but someone who understands visas and international. I don't care what anyone says. I've lived over there. I'm not an expert. No one's an expert on every country, everything else. You do have to spend the money to figure out everything from how you pay your expats. Are you doing tax equalization, which is miserable? Going through all that. I went through it as an expat, but we worked with general counsel, legal, and expatriate and visa experts. You can't do it without that. I can't anyway. I don't have that knowledge. You have to get at least consulting on how to do it. I want to go into this country. I check it out first. What is it like to hire? Do we have the money to set up locally? So, I learned the hard way. Without having a Japanese certification as a Japanese company, it's like a KKR, I can't remember, a KKL, something like that, whatever it was called. Other Japanese companies won't buy from you. It's $100,000. It's a lot of money. So you're starting like $100,000. Well, guess what? We failed and got that, and then we were able to sell. Or you just go through a distributor. You've got to make those decisions, but you just won't know everything. So you've got to get that knowledge. It's the only way only way we could do it is having that knowledge, getting consulting on it, and saying, okay, international law, tax law, benefits, all of it. It's a lot.
Yeah, and you agree that it needs to be something that's done ahead of a time, not waiting till the deal's rolling and you're like, right, actually now let's go and execute, let's go and get someone, and then you're suddenly like, that's a lot more money than I thought it was.
Starting up, hiring 1 or 2 people is a lot different than opening up an office, right? So whether you expat it, which is easier, take an American guy, go over there, try it, and see how it goes, which I think is a great way to do it, to see if you have a real market. Or hire one person locally. You have to look into that. You've literally got to look at, okay, now do I need to set up a London entity, England entity, all of that stuff. So I look into all of that, all the costs before we're ready. Now, if you're crushing it and you're doing well as a company and you're ready to go, then the risk is worth it. You're going to lose a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how the next 5-10 years go. But I think with technology and the way the world's working, I think when you're expanding internationally, I'm not sure we're going to see too many offices because it's not necessarily as needed. So I think it becomes even more important. Yeah.
So not every country works that way.
No.
So some countries want the office. Now, is it getting more remote around the world? Sure. I mean, obviously. But culturally, some people want the offices. And I get that. Sometimes I miss it. I miss, being able to go into a room, someone's whiteboarding someone, we're all yelling at each other. Like that's exciting. And I will say, I've been in a home office for 20 years. On and off, I'm either like traveling or that, so I'm used to this. I'm not just like a post-COVID home office. But no, there's something to be said about, yes, there's much more remote, but some countries do want the office, a camaraderie.
Well, Steve, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. The conversations, planning, building up to this, learned so much from you. And I really appreciate you taking time out to share just a snippet of your super success and experience building tech companies.
I appreciate it.